The sky above Earth was streaked with the shimmering trails of alien ships, dark and imposing as they hovered in the planet's orbit. The Galactic Empire, an ancient and powerful empire spanning across countless worlds, had made its move. The emissaries sent by the Empire were far superior in technology, and they believed that Earth, just a young and newly discovered planet, would bow before their might without question. On Earth, every government and military leader had been called to a summit. The representatives from the United Nations were gathered in a large high-tech conference room, filled with the sounds of hushed voices and nervous whispers. The lights above flickered as the holographic display in front of them showed the menacing ships surrounding the planet. A calm, steady voice broke the tension. "They've made their demand," said Dr. Elena Carter, a brilliant scientist and expert in alien technology. She stood at the head of the table, looking around the room. "The Galactic Empire wants us to submit as a vassal world. If we refuse, they've promised complete annihilation." A collective shiver ran through the room. Some of the leaders looked at each other, fear evident on their faces. The Empire had already conquered dozens of systems, and their advanced technology was more powerful than anything Earth had ever seen. Many thought the only choice was to surrender. "We have no choice," one of the military leaders muttered. "Look at what they've done to their other worlds. If we refuse, they'll destroy us." Dr. Carter shook her head. "No, we do have a choice. We refuse to kneel." There was a long silence. The idea of defying the Empire was almost laughable. How could a small planet like Earth, with its outdated defenses and limited space technology, ever stand against such a vast and technologically superior force? But Dr. Carter wasn't done yet. She pressed a button on the table, and the hologram shifted, showing a series of Empire ships, massive, terrifying warships with weapons capable of erasing entire cities in seconds. "We may not be able to match their firepower," Dr. Carter continued, her voice firm. "But what we have is something they don't. Human ingenuity. Our ability to adapt, to think outside the box. I believe we can turn the tables on them. We just have to be clever." The room grew quieter as people absorbed her words. A few scoffed at the idea, but many were intrigued. A military general, one of the most influential leaders in the room, leaned forward. "You're suggesting we fight back? With what? We're outmatched in every possible way," he said. "How can we possibly win?" Dr. Carter smiled. "We don't have to defeat them in a head-to-head fight. We have to use their overconfidence against them. The Empire has grown too large, too arrogant. They think they can just sweep across the galaxy and crush any resistance. But they've made a mistake. They've underestimated us." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The leaders exchanged glances, some still unsure, others beginning to show signs of belief. "We can infiltrate their systems," Dr. Carter said. "We've had small encounters with their technology before. We analyzed their communication systems, their defenses. I've already begun working on something, a project that could give us the edge we need." "Something?" the general asked. His interest piqued. Dr. Carter nodded. "Project Aegis. A weapon, but not one of bombs or lasers. We have the technology to hack into their network. If we can disable their communication and coordination systems, we can break their control over their empire. We can cause chaos, enough for other alien worlds to rise up against them." The room was filled with murmurs. The idea of taking down an empire with nothing but brains and courage seemed like a long shot. But there was a spark in the air now, a shift in the room as people began to think beyond the impossible. Perhaps they didn't need to fight in the traditional sense. They could strike at the very heart of the Empire's strength. "We need to move fast," Dr. Carter urged. "Their fleet is already here, and they won't wait long for our answer. But if we can act quickly and smartly, we can take them by surprise." The general stood up, his face set in determination. "I'll assemble the best people we have. We may not have the weapons they do, but we have something they can't predict. Humans don't give up easily." Dr. Carter smiled. "That's what I'm counting on." As the meeting ended, people began to leave with a new sense of purpose. The weight of the situation hadn't lightened, but now, instead of fear, there was something else. Hope. They didn't have to submit. They didn't have to kneel. Earth had a chance, and they were going to take it. The Galactic Empire's fleet hovered ominously above Earth, its ships large and intimidating. The demand for submission was clear: kneel or be destroyed. But the human leaders, now united under a shared purpose, began to prepare for the unexpected, something they had never done before: fighting back. Dr. Elena Carter's words had sparked a flame of hope, but the path ahead was anything but easy. Earth was not a warlike planet. Its technology was far behind the Empire's, and most of its military forces were focused on defense, not intergalactic warfare. But Dr. Carter had a plan, and it started with one thing: unity. In the weeks following the meeting, humanity rallied in a way no one thought possible. Governments and militaries from all corners of the world began pooling their resources. From space stations to underground bunkers, humans worked day and night to prepare. The world's brightest minds, engineers, hackers, and even former soldiers came together. It was a sight that had never been seen before, a global effort to stand against a force many believed was unstoppable. Dr. Carter worked tirelessly in a secret facility deep beneath the Earth's surface. She had already spent years studying the technology left behind by alien visitors. Some of it was old, some new, but it was enough to give her a glimpse into the Empire's vast network. She and her team had been working on something they called Project Aegis, an initiative that focused on hacking into the Empire's communication systems. The Empire relied heavily on this network to control its many worlds, and if they could bring it down, chaos would follow. The problem was, no one had ever attempted something like this before. The Empire's systems were encrypted and guarded by some of the most advanced security protocols in the galaxy. Failure wasn't an option. Meanwhile, General Malik, Earth's top military strategist, was preparing the world's defense forces. His plan was simple: keep the Empire distracted and buy Dr. Carter's team enough time to complete their mission. He knew the chances of winning a direct confrontation were slim, but if they could force the Empire to divide its forces, humanity might stand a chance. He called it the Shadow Strategy, a series of small tactical strikes against key Imperial assets designed to confuse and weaken their forces. Back at the command center, Dr. Carter and her team were working on their most critical task: breaking into the Empire's neural hub. This was the brain of the Empire's communication network, a massive high-tech station located on the edge of the galaxy. It was heavily guarded, but Dr. Carter knew it was their only shot at victory. If they could disrupt the hub, the Empire would lose its ability to coordinate, giving other alien worlds under its control a chance to rise up. The team had already developed the initial tools needed to infiltrate the hub, but the real challenge was getting close enough without being detected. The Empire's ships were patrolling all around Earth, and their sensors could pick up anything moving too fast or too far from the planet. For this, Dr. Carter enlisted the help of one of Earth's best pilots, Lieutenant Anna Ramos. Anna was known for her daring tactics and exceptional flying skills. If anyone could slip past the Empire's fleet, it was her. While the military prepared for defense, the scientists worked in secrecy, fine-tuning their technology. Earth had no chance in a traditional space battle, but they didn't need to fight with sheer firepower. They would use the Empire's own arrogance against it. The Empire had never faced a species like humanity, a species that thought differently, acted unexpectedly, and found solutions where none seemed possible. This was humanity's hidden edge: adaptability. The first test of their strategy came sooner than expected. A small Imperial reconnaissance ship, perhaps too confident in its control over the planet, made a move toward one of Earth's space stations. General Malik immediately ordered a counterattack. It wasn't much, just a few small, fast ships to harass the invader. But it worked. The Empire was caught off guard. The reconnaissance ship was forced to retreat, and Earth's forces scored their first victory. It wasn't much, but it was enough to show that the Empire could be challenged. The news spread quickly around the world. It was the first sign of hope, and it ignited something in humanity. People across the globe started to believe. Maybe they could win. Maybe they didn't need to kneel. Dr. Carter watched the news broadcast from her lab. She felt the weight of responsibility, but for the first time since the Empire's arrival, she felt something else. Determination. Earth had made its choice, and it wasn't going to back down. They would fight, not with the strength of weapons, but with the strength of their will and ingenuity. The clock was ticking. Earth had to act before the Empire grew wise to their plans. As the military forces scrambled to prepare for the next step, Dr. Carter and her team worked around the clock, knowing that the future of their world, and the galaxy, was in their hands. They would make their stand, and they would show the Empire what humanity was truly capable of. As Earth's leaders prepared for their final confrontation with the Galactic Empire, a sense of urgency hung over the planet. The Empire's fleet loomed above, their ships now spread out across Earth's atmosphere, waiting for the final command to strike. Time was running out, and humanity's chance to fight back was growing smaller with each passing day. But there was still a flicker of hope. In a small, dimly lit room deep within Earth's military command center, General Malik sat at a table surrounded by his senior officers. They were going over the details of the next phase of their plan, trying to determine how they could keep the Empire distracted long enough for Dr. Carter and her team to complete their mission. "We have to be clever," General Malik said, rubbing his chin. "We can't match them in firepower, but we can outmaneuver them. We'll need to keep their attention focused on multiple fronts at once. If we can force them to spread out, we can buy Carter more time." A young officer, Lieutenant Derrick, spoke up. "But their fleet is huge. Even if we divide them, we'll still be outgunned. How do we make them believe there's a threat when we're so underprepared?" General Malik nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. "We have to make them think we're capable of more than we are. We'll use decoys, feints, and anything else we can think of to make them believe we're organized and ready to fight. If they underestimate us, we have a chance." Across the planet, the situation was similar. Dr. Carter and her team were working tirelessly in their underground facility, fine-tuning their plan to hack into the Empire's communication systems. The success of Project Aegis relied on one thing: getting close enough to the Empire's neural hub, a massive, heavily protected installation on the edge of the galaxy. If they could infiltrate it, they would have the power to break the Empire's communication, throwing the Empire into disarray and creating an opening for the rebellion to spread. But the closer they got to their target, the more dangerous the mission became. Dr. Carter stood at the center of the command room, looking at the holographic display of the Empire's fleet. It was an imposing sight, vast, powerful, and seemingly invincible. But for the first time since the invasion began, Dr. Carter felt a surge of confidence. The Empire's biggest weakness wasn't their technology, it was their pride. They had never encountered a species like humanity. They thought of Earth as just a small, unimportant world that would bow to their might. What they didn't realize was that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to innovate, to think on its feet, and to never give up. Earth had something the Empire didn't: determination. "We've made progress," Dr. Carter said to her team, breaking the silence. "But we need a way to get close enough to the neural hub. We can't just fly in under their radar. They'll detect us immediately. We need something stealthy." Lieutenant Anna Ramos, the top pilot who had joined the team for this mission, stepped forward. She had been working closely with the engineers to modify a stealth ship, a small, fast vessel that could potentially sneak past the Empire's defenses. The ship wasn't perfect, but it was humanity's best shot. "I've modified the ship to blend in with the background radiation of space," Anna explained. "It won't be invisible, but it'll make it much harder for their sensors to pick us up. It's a risk, but it's our only option." Dr. Carter nodded. "I'll take that risk. We'll go in under the cover of their routine patrols. We know their patrol routes, and we can slip past them in the blind spots. Once we're close enough, we'll launch the virus into their system. But we need to make sure we're undetected. If we get caught, it's over. As Anna and the engineering team made final preparations for the mission, General Malik was working with the military to prepare their own strategy. The shadow strategy had already begun. Small groups of fighters designed to distract the Empire's ships and keep them from noticing the real objective. The General's plan wasn't just about defending Earth. It was about sending a message to the Empire. It would show them that humanity was not a planet to be ignored or crushed. They were ready to fight for their survival. "Keep them guessing," General Malik said. "Hit them where it hurts, even if it's just a small blow. We need them to think we're stronger than we are. This is about morale, as much as it is about strategy." The Empire was about to learn an important lesson. Never underestimate humanity's will to survive. As the time to launch the mission drew closer, Earth's forces stood ready. Dr. Carter's team was prepared to infiltrate the neural hub, and the military had spread their forces out, creating a series of decoy attacks meant to confuse the Empire. Earth had no illusions about the difficulty of the task, but they had something the Empire couldn't comprehend: unity, resourcefulness, and determination. The next few days would be critical. The success or failure of Earth's counterattack would determine the fate of their world. Would humanity rise to the challenge? Would they be able to strike a blow against the invincible Empire? Only time would tell. The day of the operation had arrived. Earth's forces were spread thin across the globe, their military outposts, decoy ships, and defense systems all set in motion. In the shadows, a small team led by Dr. Carter was preparing to make their final push into the heart of the Empire's communication network. Dr. Carter looked at her team, their faces a mix of determination and anxiety. They had spent weeks planning. But now, as the moment of truth arrived, the weight of the task seemed even greater. She could feel the tension in the air. The fate of Earth, the survival of the human race, depended on this mission succeeding. There was no room for error. The team had gathered in the command center, a small, hidden room beneath the ground. The lights were dim, and the only sounds were the quiet hum of machinery and the soft murmur of conversations. Ana Ramos, the fearless pilot, was making final checks on the stealth ship, a modified vessel that had been designed to blend in with the background radiation of space. "We're ready," Ana said, her voice steady but tense. "The ship's ready for launch. We've got just enough time to slip through the Empire's patrol routes and get close enough to the neural hub. We won't get another chance." Dr. Carter nodded, glancing over at the team of engineers and hackers who had been working nonstop to create a virus that would cripple the Empire's network. They had managed to write a complex program that, once deployed, would cause chaos within the Empire's communication systems. The hub, the central nerve of the Empire's control, would be vulnerable, but only if they could reach it without being detected. Ana gave one final look at the small group before climbing into the pilot's seat. The ship was small, sleek, and unassuming, designed for speed rather than combat. It was the perfect vessel for a covert operation. They could only pray that their modifications would be enough to avoid detection. "Good luck, everyone," Ana said before launching the ship into space. The team watched as the vessel shot upward, vanishing into the darkness of space. The countdown had begun. While Dr. Carter's team made their move, General Malik was overseeing Earth's defense operations. His forces were spread thin, keeping the Empire's attention focused on multiple fronts. It was a dangerous game of misdirection, and he knew it. Every minute they could keep the Empire occupied was another minute that Dr. Carter's team had to carry out their mission. "I want all fighters in position," Malik ordered, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "We need to keep the pressure on them. Hit their supply ships, strike at their patrols. Don't give them a chance to think." The battle had already begun in space. Earth's fighters, equipped with makeshift weapons and aging technology, clashed with the far superior Imperial ships. It was a desperate fight. Humanity was outmatched, but not outsmarted. The fighters darted through the chaos, attacking with hit-and-run tactics, never staying in one place too long. The Empire's larger ships tried to retaliate, but the smaller human ships proved more agile, able to weave between incoming fire and strike where it hurt the most. The Empire had not expected this level of resistance. Earth's forces were relentless, refusing to back down despite the odds. The Empire's commanders were growing frustrated. They had underestimated the humans, thinking that their technological superiority would be enough to crush the resistance. But Earth's fighters were more than just soldiers. They were driven by the will to survive. Back on Earth, in the underground facility, Dr. Carter monitored the progress of the stealth ship. Every second felt like an eternity. The tension was unbearable. But then, a breakthrough. A transmission came through from Anna's ship. "We're in." Anna's voice crackled through the comms. "We're close to the neural hub. I'm taking us in as quietly as possible. It's now or never." Dr. Carter's heart raced. This was it, the most dangerous part of the mission. They were almost within reach of the Empire's central hub, but their chances of getting in undetected were slim. The Empire's sensors were some of the most advanced in the galaxy, and if they detected even a tiny blip, the mission would fail. "We'll be waiting," Dr. Carter replied, her voice steady. "Good luck." As Anna piloted the ship closer to the hub, the team on the ground continued to work feverishly. The virus was almost ready. Once the ship was in position, they would deploy it into the Empire's network. The virus would spread quickly, disabling key systems and causing confusion throughout the Empire's operations. If they succeeded, it would buy Earth the time they needed to fight back. If they failed, there would be no second chance. But the Empire wasn't going to make it easy. As Anna's ship neared the neural hub, an alarm sounded. A nearby patrol ship had detected an anomaly, a small, undetected ship moving through their sector. "We've been spotted." Anna's voice came through the comms, panic rising. "They know we're here." Dr. Carter's team scrambled to activate their emergency plan. It was now a race against time. If Anna couldn't complete the mission and deploy the virus, Earth's last hope would be lost. The Empire would have them in their grasp. The mission was teetering on the edge of failure. Would Anna and her team make it in time? Would the virus deploy before they were caught? Every second counted, and Earth's fate was hanging in the balance. The tension in the air was almost unbearable as Anna fought to keep the stealth ship on course. The Empire's patrol ships were closing in, their sensors scanning the surrounding space. Every move she made could be the one that gave them away. Her fingers gripped the controls, heart racing, as she guided the ship closer to the neural hub. "We can't afford to get caught," Anna muttered to herself, her voice barely a whisper over the comms. She knew how close they were to success, and how close they were to failure. Back on Earth, General Malik was coordinating the defense, directing Earth's forces to keep the Empire busy. The fight in space raged on. Humanity's fighters darting between the massive Imperial ships, attacking in small, quick bursts. It was all a diversion. Earth's last hope hinged on Dr. Carter's mission succeeding. Every minute they could delay the Empire's retaliation meant more time for the virus to reach its target. They spotted something, one of the officers in the command center said, watching the readouts. "The Empire's sensors are picking up something in their sector. It's small, probably a stealth ship, but they're closing in fast." General Malik clenched his fists. "Keep them distracted. Don't let them focus on one target. We need more time." Meanwhile, inside the stealth ship, Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She could hear the distant hum of the Empire's ships, moving ever closer. The small craft she piloted was fast, but it couldn't outrun the larger patrol ships forever. They had to get close enough to the neural hub to deploy the virus. One last chance to cripple the Empire's communication. "Almost there," Anna whispered, her hands steady despite the pressure. She glanced at the holographic display in front of her, mapping the path to the neural hub. She had studied the layout hundreds of times, memorized every detail. The path was narrow, But if she could make it through, she would be in the heart of the Empire's control network. Dr. Carter stood at her station, watching the data streams flicker across the screen. Her team was on edge, preparing to upload the virus the moment Anna's ship was in position. The virus, a complex program, had been designed to shut down key systems, disrupt communication, and create chaos within the Empire's network. But it would only work if Anna could deliver it directly to the neural hub. Just a little longer, Dr. Carter murmured, her fingers hovering over the control panel. She knew this was their best and only chance. Once the virus was deployed, it would spread quickly through the Empire's systems, sowing confusion and making their vast network useless. But if Anna failed, if they were caught, Earth would have nothing left to hold on to. Anna's ship was close now, so close. The neural hub, a massive and heavily guarded station, loomed ahead. It was a fortress in space, surrounded by layers of defense. The closer Anna got, the more dangerous it became. A single mistake would mean they would be caught and destroyed before the virus could even be released. Steady, Anna murmured to herself as she expertly navigated the tight, narrow corridors of space leading toward the hub. She could see the Empire's ships, massive and imposing, patrolling the area around the hub. The stealth ship was barely a blip on their radar, but that wouldn't last long. Suddenly, alarms blared across the ship. Anna's hands flew across the controls as the ship jerked slightly. A missile had been fired from a nearby patrol ship, narrowly missing the stealth ship by mere inches. "They're onto us," Anna shouted, her voice sharp with urgency. "They know we're here." Dr. Carter's eyes widened as the signal from Anna's ship flickered. The Empire had discovered them, but they hadn't caught them yet. The stealth ship was still moving, but its time was running out. The patrol ships were closing in, and they wouldn't stop until they had destroyed the intruders. "We need to act now," Dr. Carter ordered. "Upload the virus. Now." The moment was here. Anna lined up the stealth ship directly over the neural hub, praying they had enough time. She activated the ship's communication systems, linking it to the hub's mainframe. "Uploading," Anna said, her voice calm but tense. Dr. Carter watched as the virus transferred across the communication network. The program was designed to infiltrate the hub's systems and disable them from the inside. It was a gamble, but it was their only shot. The first signs of success were already showing. Lights began flashing on the display, indicating that the virus was starting to spread. The neural hub's defenses were starting to crumble. "Come on," Anna urged quietly, gripping the controls tighter. Her ship was still being pursued, and it wouldn't be long before the Empire's fleet arrived in full force. The virus had to finish its job before they could destroy the ship. Back on Earth, the command center erupted in cheers. The virus was working. They could see the Empire's network beginning to destabilize, their communication systems failing, their ships in disarray. Earth's forces had a chance, finally, a chance to strike back. But the battle was far from over. Anna looked over her shoulder, seeing the Empire's ships closing in rapidly. They had no way to escape now. "The virus is in," she said, her voice steady but laced with concern. "But they're coming for us." Dr. Carter looked at her team, determination in her eyes. "We've done it. Now we make sure we survive to finish this." The future of Earth hung by a thread. The virus had been deployed. The Empire's network was starting to crumble. But the real fight was only beginning. The stealth ship lurched as it shot through the void of space, its engines straining against the pressure. Anna held the controls with a white-knuckled grip, her mind racing. The mission had succeeded, at least partially. The virus was spreading through the Empire's network, causing chaos among their forces. Their once impressive communication systems were failing, their fleet scrambling for answers. But the danger was far from over. The Empire's wrath would be swift, and they were already hunting her down. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. The Empire's ships, massive and relentless, were closing in. She had to think fast. There was no way to outrun them. Their sensors were too advanced. Her only hope now was to keep the ship as invisible as possible. She made a sharp turn, taking the ship into a cluster of asteroids, hoping the debris would help mask their presence. Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Malik and his team were coordinating their counterattack. The Empire's forces had been thrown into disarray thanks to the virus. But that didn't mean they were defeated. The Empire was vast, and their retaliation would be brutal. But for the first time, the humans had an opening, a chance to strike back. "Get the fighters in position," General Malik barked. "We need to keep the pressure on them. If we can keep them off balance, we might just have a chance." The fleet of human ships, though small and outgunned, was determined. The Empire had underestimated them, thinking that their sheer strength and technology would be enough to crush Earth's resistance. But they had been wrong. The human spirit was unyielding. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity had fought back with everything it had. Earth's fighters, quick and agile, darted between the larger, slower Imperial ships. They avoided direct confrontation, instead focusing on harassing the enemy, hitting them in quick bursts, then disappearing before the Empire's ships could retaliate. It was a dangerous strategy, but it was working. The Empire was starting to buckle under the pressure. Back in space, Anna's ship continued to dodge and weave through the asteroid field. Her eyes were fixed on the redouts, tracking the movements of the enemy ships. The Empire's patrols were getting closer, but she couldn't afford to make a mistake. Every move she made had to be perfect. One wrong turn, one miscalculation, and the Empire would catch up, and the mission, and her life, would be over. "We've got a lock on her," came the voice of an Imperial officer over the comms, their voice filled with frustration. "She's in range. Lock onto that ship. Fire everything we've got." The first volley of plasma fire shot through the space around Anna's ship. She pulled hard on the controls, narrowly avoiding the blast. Her pulse quickened, but she didn't have time to panic. She had to focus. The Empire's ships were relentless, and they weren't going to stop until they had destroyed her and the virus she carried. "This is it," Anna said to herself, determination setting in. "I'm not giving up now." She pushed the ship's engines to their limit, taking sharp turns and sudden dives, using the asteroid field as cover. It was risky, but she knew it was her only chance. The Empire's ships followed, their weapons firing wildly. The small stealth ship, though much faster, was no match for the sheer firepower of the larger Imperial ships. Inside the ship, Anna's breathing was heavy as she struggled to maintain control. The ship's hull groaned under the strain of the evasive maneuvers, but it held together. She could hear the distant hum of the Imperial engines as they closed in. It was only a matter of time before they would catch up. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the situation was growing more dire. Despite the virus, the Empire's forces were starting to regroup. They had begun to understand that their communication systems were compromised, but they were far from defeated. Earth's forces had made a dent, but the war was still in full swing. Dr. Carter, watching from the command center, clenched her fists in frustration. "We need to give them more time. We can't let Anna's sacrifice be in vain." The virus had done its job, but the real battle was taking place in the stars. If Anna couldn't escape, if Earth couldn't keep the Empire distracted, the virus's success would mean nothing. The Empire would simply rebuild, more determined than ever to crush humanity once and for all. On the front lines, General Malik was rallying Earth's forces for one final push. "We have one chance to turn this around. Fight with everything you have. If we fall today, we fall together. But if we stand, if we keep pushing, we can win this." The human forces, battered but not broken, surged forward. They had no illusions about the Empire's power. But they also had something the Empire could never understand: the will to fight for their freedom, for their future. Back in space, Anna was running out of options. The Empire's ships were closing in, their weapons locking onto her ship. The asteroid field was thinning out, and she could see no place left to hide. Her eyes flicked to the display. One final maneuver, one last chance to get away. With a deep breath, Anna took the ship into a sharp dive, barely avoiding a barrage of fire. The ship's engine screamed as it sped toward a nearby moon. If she could make it into the moon's shadow, she might have just enough time to shake off her pursuers. She could feel the weight of the moment. The virus was already taking effect, but she was too close to the enemy to let her guard down. One final push, one last fight. "I'm not giving up," she whispered to herself. The battle for survival was far from over. The moment Anna entered the moon's shadow, she felt a glimmer of hope. The Empire's ships were still close, their weapons poised to strike, but the darkness of the moon offered her a small advantage. The stealth ship slowed, hiding behind the rocky surface, and Anna held her breath, praying that her pursuers would lose track of her. For a moment, the ship's engine hummed quietly, blending with the silence of space. Anna's fingers rested lightly on the controls, every muscle tense, waiting for the inevitable. She couldn't afford to make a mistake now. The virus was working. Its effects were spreading through the Empire's communications network, but without her escape, the virus's success would mean nothing. The Empire would strike back with even more power, and Earth would have no chance. In the distant command center back on Earth, Dr. Carter and General Malik were glued to their screens. They could see the progress of the virus as it continued to disrupt the Empire's systems. Ships were unable to communicate, their commanders baffled by the sudden chaos. For a brief moment, Earth's forces had the upper hand. But that would only last if Anna made it out alive. The virus was a powerful weapon, but it needed time to fully spread. Time that the Empire would never willingly give. "We've got to hold the line," General Malik said, his voice unwavering despite the pressure. Every minute counts. As the battle raged on in space, Anna's stealth ship remained hidden behind the moon. She had only one option left: take the risk and leave the moon's shadow, hoping she could make it back to Earth before the Empire's forces caught up with her. The seconds ticked by. She could feel the tension mounting in the air. Every minute she stayed hidden brought her closer to safety, but it also meant the Empire had more time to track her down. She couldn't afford to wait too long. Her heart raced as she calculated her next move. Then something unexpected happened. The Empire's ships, once relentless in their pursuit, began to slow down. Anna watched in disbelief as their formations broke apart. One by one, the Imperial ships started to pull away, their targeting systems flickering in confusion. A voice crackled over her comms, but it wasn't the usual Empire officer. It was a human voice. "Anna," Dr. Carter said, relief in her tone. "It's happening. The virus worked. Their systems are collapsing. They can't coordinate their ships." Anna's heart skipped a beat. "Are you sure? They're still out there. They're still coming for me." "They're falling apart," Dr. Carter continued. "The virus is spreading faster than they anticipated. It's disabling their fleet. Without their central command, they're lost. We've got this." Anna's mind raced. The Empire's command structure was broken. The virus was doing its job. But there was still one problem. Her ship was alone in the middle of a battlefield. The Empire's ships were still out there, scattered and confused. But they were dangerous. She had to move quickly. "All right," Anna said, her voice steady. "I'm moving out." With a deep breath, she pulled the ship back out of the moon's shadow. The Empire's ships were scattered, but they weren't gone yet. Anna's ship darted out, weaving through the debris, staying low and fast. The Empire's vessels were still in pursuit, but now they were slower, less organized. They fired in random bursts, no longer able to lock on to their target. Come on," Anna whispered, pushing the ship faster. She glanced at the redouts, watching the chaos unfold around her. The virus was turning the tide. Earth's fighters were gaining ground, their attacks now more focused and effective. The Empire was struggling to defend itself, its once mighty fleet now falling apart. As the stealth ship sped through the debris field, Anna's comms buzzed again. It was General Malik. "Anna, we're almost there. The fighters are closing in. We've got backup on the way." The relief in Malik's voice was undeniable. But Anna knew that the fight wasn't over yet. The Empire might be disorganized, but they still had power, and they wouldn't give up without a fight. She glanced at the view screen, watching as the Earth's fighters appeared on the horizon, ready to make their final push. The Empire's ships, though scattered, were still formidable. But now, the Empire was divided. It was no longer a fight of strength alone. It was a fight of will. Anna's ship was almost out of the field. She had made it through the chaos and was now headed toward safety. But the final leg of the journey was the most dangerous. The Empire's remaining ships were regrouping, and they would make one last attempt to destroy her. As the stealth ship sped toward the rendezvous point, Anna couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. She had done her part. She had carried the virus into the heart of the Empire's power. And now, Earth had a fighting chance. The Empire's strength, once unshakable, was crumbling before their eyes. In the distance, the human fighters were closing in, attacking with all the fury and determination they had left. The Empire was on the ropes, and the humans were ready to finish the fight. Anna's ship, battered but still intact, rocketed toward safety, and for the first time in a long while, there was hope for the future. As the battle for Earth continued, the humans had shown the Empire one undeniable truth. Earth would not kneel. They would fight, and they would win.